Hey everybody, and welcome to the Unlock Show. Before we get started, I want to tell you a little bit about the guest that I've got on the show with me today. So in about 60 seconds time, I will be queuing in the amazing Nic Fitzgerald. And what we're going to talk about today is the topic of how the simple storytelling framework that you can implement in your business, any entrepreneur can use to find the hidden gems in your story that is the pathway to growing your business by sharing the story that only you have. So hang about. That is what today's show is all about. I will be back in 60 seconds and we'll be right here with Nic, and we'll be unlocking all the secrets on how you can create your own framework for telling your amazing story that also leads to profits in your business. So hang about. I'll see you soon. Well, hey, you guys, thanks for hanging about. In just about 2 seconds, I'm going to bring the amazing Nic onto the screen, just like that. And I want to say, here he is. Welcome to everybody who's watching this morning. So welcome to the Unlock Show. I'm your host, Tracy. We're going to be on here for about, I don't know, maybe 40, 50 minutes. And we're going to be chatting about all things storytelling. And Nic is going to be sharing with us a simple framework that any entrepreneur can use to really dive in deep, unlock the secrets to find that secret gem inside of your own personal journey and your story that can create a connection between you and your audience that will also lead to more profits, more exposure, and more thrivability in your life and in your business. So welcome to the show, Nic. Awesome to have you here. Nic and I have known one another for a number of years now, so I'm pretty excited because I've been messaging him for, I'm going to say, for a couple of months to try and get him on the show, because I know that some of the stuff that Nic has got to share is going to be really, really useful for all of our viewers and our listeners out there. So I want to say a huge, big welcome, and thanks so much for agreeing to come on the Unlock Show with me, Nic. Welcome.
Absolutely. It's great to be here. It's good to see you again. Like, we've known each other for a while, but we haven't actually got to see each other in seems like a million years. So it's awesome to see you.
This crazy thing called COVID has prevented us from traveling, right? Yeah. So, given that is the case, this kind of environment where we're able to talk online and, create an audience provides us with a huge opportunity. And that opportunity is to tell your story. So I wanted to, I've asked Nic to be here because I know that in talking with a lot of people, they sort of start out with like, what do you mean? Tell my story, tell people about what I'm about and who I am. Like, how the heck can that actually relate to my business? How do I turn that into a profit? And how do I even find what I've got to share? Because most people think they don't have something worthwhile to share. That would be a common thing, right, Nic? Is that what you're hearing too?
Yeah, absolutely. Out of everyone that I talk to, 99.9% of people fall into one of two categories when it comes to storytelling, specifically for their business. It's like you mentioned, I'm not interesting. Do I even have a story to tell? Who cares about little old me? I'm kind of boring. Or on the flip side, they had a lot of experience and things happen in their lives and they don't know where to begin, what to share versus what to keep private, and things like that too. And so it is a big challenge, understanding one why story, why it's important, why you should make it a priority, but then where to even begin and how to get started. Because, it's challenging and intimidating to start to put your personal experiences and stuff out there. So a lot of people shy away from it.
Absolutely. I mean, I think back to even myself, Nick, and I remember, in the early stages of entrepreneurship, and this whole concept of like tell your story was out there. And I was one of those, was like, what's so good to tell? Like at the time, all I was seeing was like rags to riches type stories. And, I went from being the local garbage man to now I'm a millionaire. And I'm like, well, I don't even have a story like that. I'm a regular person. How can I possibly have something that's interesting to share with other people that is relatable, that I'm going to want to share? Like, how do people do that? So let's start there. Like, we'll categorize now that we've got the two categories, those that kind of were like me, like what's so good, so big deal about me, what have I got to share? And then those that have got like an amazing story, but they don't know where to start. Let's start with the ones that are like me, that had kind of like regular people, regular life. How do you find a story within that?
Right. Well, really, the thing that I always focus on when I'm starting a story is one, you need to have a purpose, and we can get into that a little bit later. But when you tell a story for yourself and you're starting to think about it, and you didn't have, like you said, a major crisis or something, or a huge transformation, think about, whatever path you're on, whatever your business is, whatever you have done, there's something that put you on the path, that triggered you, that helped you make that decision to create or start doing the thing that you're doing right now. And it's usually conflict of some sort. Now, again, it might not be something like me where I was being audited by the state of Utah to see if we were receiving too much help in the food stamp and social assistance programs and things like that. It might not be something traumatic like that. It might just be something that you saw in society, socially, something that you experienced with a coworker or a colleague or a family member, and it started your mind thinking about new things and set you on the path of where you're at now. So I always begin with the conflict. What challenges, what things were happening in my world that set me and started me to begin researching and studying, or maybe I attended a seminar or an event and I was introduced to a new way of thinking, and what things led you to get to that point. So beginning with conflict and trying to find it is where I always begin, whether it's you've had one of those rags to riches, high drama type of stories, or you've had a regular life. So look for the opportunities when conflict came into your life, because that's going to give you the trigger points and the places to start telling and sharing your journey. So that's the first place that I begin.
Well, that's fantastic. And I know that, like, in your background, so with Friendly Giant Films, and also kind of your background as being in the film industry, like what you've just said there absolutely relates to the film industry too, right? Because what you've done is essentially taken, well, this is what they do with big films and big movies. They always start with the conflict. So if we think about, like, when you're watching a movie, usually in the first few seconds, it's like, boom, 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 there's a big lot of conflict. And so therefore, that's the thing that draws you in and wants you, the purpose of that is getting you to see the conflict and making you want to watch and listen more. Like, how the heck is this going to unfold? What happens next? So I think that's really cool. Tell us more about how you, like, in the film industry, like you taking that message out of the film industry and then inserting that into what you're doing now, like that conflict piece.
Yeah. Well, and it is funny, like you mentioned, once I started really seeing these things, I've been, a huge fan of movies and stories. And, if those watching the video, you see my background, I've got a bunch of toys and movie props and Star Wars stuff and, those kinds of things behind me. And it's always been a huge part of my life. But as I started, my entrepreneurial journey and trying to build an audience, because I started at 35 years old, basically, I was almost 35 years old when I started my entrepreneurial journey. And I didn't have a network. I didn't have a community and all those things that are out there. I didn't even know that they existed. So I had to find a way to attract, my people and my ideal clients and things like that. And so when I started, trying to tell my story and build my audience, I was looking for those conflict points. I started my entrepreneurial journey because I was fired. I was a financial advisor, right? So I identified those. And what I've seen in film, every movie, and my favorite one is Star Wars series. That movie, like the original 1977 Star Wars: A New Hope, right? The very first sentence that we see in the words that are scrolling up on the screen is, "It is a period of civil war." In the very first sentence of the movie, it's established that there's conflict going on, and then the conflict evolves throughout the story, and we can talk about that, as well as tricks that Hollywood uses in order to really draw in the audience, build that connection, and then of course they reap the benefits by selling more tickets and things like that too. And that's what you can do with yours. And seeing these, masters, I've worked in film, like Tracy mentioned. I've worked on 14 feature films and 2 network television series, a whole bunch of commercials. I was a freelance photojournalist for NBC here in Utah as well. So I learned from Oscar winners and Emmy winners on these storytelling, foundations. And it's one thing, some people think, okay, that's great, Nick. It works in Hollywood and it works in film. How do I do that for my business? Mm-hmm. Ultimately, Hollywood and TV shows and movies and all those things, they are designed, yes, for entertainment purposes, but they are designed to make money. There are investors, there are producers, there are bottom lines, and there are points and all these things that are handed out and are designed to pay out on the back end. And, while there's the art involved in it and, having emotions and telling the story in a visual way or in whatever way that it's told, but it's ultimately to make money and to profit. That's the only reason why it's been going. And for instance, since I can't remember offhand the exact year that they started keeping track of the box office tallies every year, but since the 70s, they've done almost $1 trillion in just box office ticket sales. That's not distribution, that's not Blu-rays or streaming services or merchandising or anything like that. It's a proven model, and we as entrepreneurs and as businesses can use that to be able to connect with our audience, get our message out there in a clear way that helps them understand who we are, who we help, and what results we get for them. But then also to do it in a way where we connect and there's relationship and it's a long-lasting thing instead of just having to churn and burn through the next prospect and sale and stuff. And so I've absolutely loved, identifying these secrets in this framework, and then putting it together in my own business and putting it to use and seeing how it worked. And then now I, help others use those tools to do the same for themselves in their business.
I love this because, there's a few things that you've said in that, Nick. And one is that make no bones about it. Like, we're in business, right? So, and so are they. So the bottom line is you want to use your storytelling just like they do in Hollywood films to connect to your audience and then be able to ultimately sell more of whatever it is that you do. Because if you're in business, that's what you need to do, or you want to put food on your family's table, you have to make money somehow. So, we're making it very clear that that's exactly what, the intention of doing this is. The second thing is around audience. You mentioned when you started out, you realized that what you had to do was build an audience. And this is the same in Hollywood, right? I mean, their whole intention of whenever they're doing something, it's to build an audience of people that is going to watch, follow, love, and become a diehard fan of something like, Star Wars, where you are, however, 50 years later, still a diehard Star Wars fan. And there's fundamental things threaded within that process that enable you to build that audience, to have them stay on the journey with you because they're so brought into the story and the purpose of what you're doing, that 50 years later, you're still purchasing Star Wars, memorabilia. So that is essentially what you're trying to, what you're doing when you're teaching this storytelling framework.
Absolutely. And, the key is, you think of movies and television shows, there are different genres, right? There's sci-fi, there's fantasy, there's drama, there's fiction, there's crime, there are all these different types of movies and genres. And it's the same. There's all sorts of different types of businesses. And these movies are created, of course, there's the story that's created and a director has a vision, but the studios, they work closely and they give notes and things like that to be able to give it the most exposure to the right kinds of audience. Just like you wouldn't, using Star Wars again as an example, I wouldn't want to try and market a sci-fi movie to the romantic comedy lovers, you know, that kind of thing. Even though there are some of those moments in the movie, if you marketed it that way and then the people come and buy their ticket, they're going to be disappointed because they had a different expectation. And that's with you as you're building your audience and you're being intentional. Again, you know, the first step before starting with the conflict is beginning with the end in mind, having a purpose and an intention behind the messaging that we're doing. You have to know your audience, because if you don't know them, you know, you're going to miss out on opportunities to work with them or attract the right kinds of people, because there's nothing worse. And, you know, we've all done this, especially when you're in the startup phases and you're trying to just get any sort of income to build a book of business or to build a portfolio even, that you'll take on any project. As you grow, and if you really want to actually grow, you have to get very specific on your audience and who you're speaking to. And so, and, you know, that's the other great lesson that we learned from, you know, Hollywood, is that they market and they create their products and what they put out there specifically for the audience that it is truly designed for, and who's craving it, who is wanting it, who they're hearing, you know, wants another sequel to this movie or that kind of thing. They are very specific and intentional with how they build those messages to reach those specific people.
Super points that you make. So starting with the end in mind, let's go there. So in terms of like somebody, and I believe that this is, like, I'm totally on board with you, Nic, because I think that being able to tell your story or share your message in a way that resonates and it can, and you're speaking to a specific audience that is going to potentially want to do more business with you down the track, is absolutely the way to go. And you talked a lot about building out the audience. Like, I'm going to say audience is kind of like, if you haven't taken anything away from this, guys, like one thing that Nic has said in his discussion thus far is that he knew he had to build an audience of people before he even, because he started out with nobody. He had no audience. He was talking to, you know, almost like talking to nobody, standing in a cupboard speaking to no one. So he had to start building his audience. And prior to that, it was like working out, what is my purpose? What is my end in mind? So when you started working through that, Nic, let's just use you as an example. Starting out, no audience, you going, well, I'm going to need to set my intention here, and I need to set up something that has a purpose. And you started to reverse engineer, started with that end in mind. For you, what was that, and how did you do that?
Yeah, that's an awesome question, and it's a fun experience to go through, you know. And every time I'm putting together a piece, whether it's a Facebook Live or a video, a marketing piece for myself or with any of my clients, we always begin with end in mind. And really quickly, with what that means is, like you said, as entrepreneurs, we have to be intentional with the things that we do from the moment we wake up to the moment we go to bed at night. Our movements and the actions we take in our business need to have an intention and purpose. And absolutely, when it comes to our stories, it has to be the way. How many of you have been at a networking event or even a family reunion or something, and there's somebody just talking your ear off? There's no point to it, and you're just looking for any opportunity to get out of that conversation. You're looking for your friends or somebody to be like, oh, come and save me, right? You don't ever want to be that voice in the ears of the people that you want to serve. So I always ask myself, when it comes to begin with the end in mind, I'm sitting here, and again, this helps you as you're starting out, where you're like, I don't know where to begin. What story should I even tell? Do I start when I was a kid or a baby, or where do I begin? You identify and you ask yourselves these three questions. What do I want the audience to feel, think, and do as a result of this story? And as you identify what emotions you want them to feel, what emotional connections you want to start to build, what thought processes do you want to engage in them? Typically, you obviously want it to be something along the lines of where their life is at right now versus where it could be with your help or guidance or whatever it is that you offer. Mm-hmm. And then what action do you want them to take? Is that for them to partner with you and open up their wallet and buy something? Is it to join or subscribe to your YouTube channel or whatever it might be? There has to be an emotional component, a logical component, and a physical, like an action call to action point of it. Yeah. And so when I started, did you have something?
No.
Okay, sorry. I thought I heard something. So with that, with me, as I started, I had worked in film. I'd worked on all these sets and I learned my skills. I'd built a network, doing all the things that I thought I was supposed to be doing, but now I needed to provide for my family. I was in a tough financial situation where we had lost our home. We were renting a basement apartment from a family member. And I didn't have a network of clients, of people to market to. I had great film buddies that I could bring in on projects, but I didn't have any projects coming in. And so I decided it was time for me to tell my story, and not only to use video as like kind of the delivery vehicle of the story, but just to really get the message dialed in. And so when I started asking the feel, think, and do for my very first marketing piece that I ever did for my company, I started thinking, okay, I want people to feel a connection to me personally because I'm the friendly giant. I like people. I connect with people easily. I want to be able to have some rapport or connection built during this short amount of time. I wanted people to start thinking about, this is really good. I want something like this for myself. I want this, like a story or a video that does this for me. And then obviously the action point was for them to reach out, and we would hop on a call and then start the process of how we work together. And so as I had those things, I just started working backwards, thinking of, do I talk solely about, I worked in movies and here's my credentials and how wonderful I am or how good I am at telling stories with video. I didn't really feel that was the right way to go with what I was saying. So I just started thinking, and I remember, when you start thinking intentionally about these things, you'll have ideas come to your head in the most bizarre ways sometimes. Like for me, I was listening to music for another video project that I was working on, and I heard this track, and it was just like sparked, the lights turned on in my brain, and I just started scribbling feverishly all these notes and ideas down. And it ultimately turned out into this video, that I released, an introduction to Friendly Giant Films, where I told a story of going to the movies with my grandma when I was a kid, and how it was just one of my most fondest memories, and how she took me to see Return of the Jedi, and I was so excited to see my heroes again. And I remember I went through the senses and of, my feet sticking to the floor, and the smell of popcorn, and the lights dimming, and the music swelling, and all of these things. I just told this really short story in the course of maybe a minute. And then I transitioned into, my experiences in the film community, where it's like, my passion is to help people find and tell stories. I've done these things, and I used visuals of projects that I'd worked on to reinforce that I had the skills, right? And then the call to action about how everyone remembers a powerful story, and we want, your audience to remember these kinds of things when they hear yours. So let's work together, right? And that's the process that's really breezing through it, of course, but of how when I set that intention, I asked myself to feel, think, and do question, I was able to find this structure or these points. And then I was able to go through my experiences and my point of view and the things that I have seen in the world and identify what parts to share. Nowhere in there did I talk about losing my job as a financial advisor. Nowhere in there did I talk about, this video package is the most amazing thing and you're going to get A, B, C, and D. It was all about telling a story, showing that I had these other skills to make the story even stronger, and inviting people to work with me to create their own, right? So for that, and it was funny, I shared it with the world and immediately got thousands of views. And I still get messages in my inbox today. It's been out there since 2017, in the fall. So almost 4 years now, it's been out there. And I still get comments about, I want that for my business. That was amazing. I got goosebumps, or I got teary-eyed and stuff listening to that story from complete strangers. And it's worked, and it's brought in a lot of people into my world. It's qualified them as well, because they see the level of skill and whatnot that I put into my work. But mostly there's a connection. They're just like, that was incredible. And I've made a lot of amazing friends and connections as a result of it. So not all of them have become clients, but they know what I do. They know what I'm all about, and they know that I can do what I do because I built that specific story. And that's just one instance of it. Tracy and I have had lots of experiences where she's seen me be able to share my story in other groups and things like that too. And it's just a super powerful thing. And I've just been blessed, to be able to see how all of these things really work to help build your right audience. Because I struggled with finding clients that had a budget more than like a couple of $100 to work with me, and getting really dialed in on who they are, how I can help them, what pain they have, and then speaking specifically to those people made all the difference in everything with my messaging going forward.
I mean, so many things. I've taken notes here, Nic, and I want to go over these notes because there's some specific things that I think have been fantastic in just that story that you've just told there. So the first thing, and this is something that I think we don't spend enough time on this, and that is, you mentioned your audience. So really set your intention, but then be very clear about who it is that you're wanting to speak to. Because in our experience, if you're trying to speak to everybody, you'll be speaking to nobody. That's what happens. So be very, very clear on who it is that you want to connect with. And I often start with this as who's your dream client? Who would you want to wake up to every day and want to actually spend some quality time with and have a conversation with? And if you can identify exactly who those people are, then you're pretty much there. They are your tribe. They are the people that you want to speak to. The next thing that you mentioned was this intention. So the feel, think, and do. So what emotion do you want them to feel? What do you want them to be thinking about what you're talking about? And then what action do you want them to take? Then I took from what you said, I've kind of just created my own little framework here, and I have no idea if it's anywhere close to the framework that you have that you're going to be sharing with us. But the point that I'm trying to make here, guys, is that when you're watching these shows, what I want you to, or you're listening on the podcast, what I want you to be doing is I want you to have a pen and paper handy, and I want you to be thinking through what is the framework and the process that the person is sharing with us today. So based on what Nic has said to me, I've got a framework of 5 things, a 5-step framework based on what Nic has talked about. And it starts with number 1 being the intention. Set your intention, knowing who it is that you're going to be speaking to. What it is that I want them to feel, think, or do as a result of me sharing what I'm going to share today. The next thing is, what is the story I'm going to tell? So when I've worked out what my intention is, I'm also working out in my journey that one piece of conflict that I had at one point when I was 15 years old, for example, that piece of conflict that I had, how am I going to tell that story in a clear and concise way that is going to have a purpose to it? So like Nic said, when you're at a party and you're chatting away with someone, it's like, friggin' heck, I want to get away from you as fast as I can. You're wanting to have that story that has a purpose to telling that story. And that's the third thing. So it's what is the point of this? The fourth thing that Nic does is he layers on a level of credibility. So in what we're doing here is our credibility is the fact that we're actually able to show up and have a solid conversation about this specific topic, and it's live. There's no cutting, no editing, no nothing with this. You are purely seeing that it is a legitimate live conversation, us talking about our skills, our knowledge, and our expertise. So credibility he's layered onto that. And then the fifth thing in the process is a call to action. And this also comes back to that emotional, logical, and action that Nic talked about. It's what action do you want that person to take? So based on what Nic's talked about today, and I'm making this point because I want to make sure that when you guys are watching the Unlocked show or you're listening, that you're actually taking notes, because in everything that every guest has when they come onto the show there is a framework. Listen very carefully to what that framework is. And there is also a clue inside of that is the way in which you can continue to develop your business moving forward, is by a good use of a framework. So Nic, now that I've kind of just rattled off the 5 things that I think you clearly articulated to me that I would put into a framework, what is the framework that you use?
Yeah, well, and you're hitting all these great points, because when we tell our story, we run into one other thing we run into is when we actually start doing it, we can start to make it all about us. And it's like, me, I did this, I did that, instead of inviting the audience and the listeners to join us on the journey and to go forward with us, right? And so this framework that I have developed is one that helps you tell and structure a story the right way, but includes the things that are going to draw the audience into the story in order for them to join the journey and make them feel like they're a part of it. That way, when when you win or you succeed or you offer the solution or whatever it is in your intention that you've set with the story, they celebrate it. They feel a part of it. They feel the excitement and the elation that you felt in those moments as well. And so, we've talked about two of the points, the first 2 points, which are begin with the end in mind and then introduce the conflict and the problems early in the story. From there, there's the other elements of storytelling that build connection. Okay. So first off is really simple, that every story has these three simple things, a beginning, a middle, and an end. And people usually laugh about how simple that is. But like I said earlier, that guy or gal at a party that's just talking your ear off and there doesn't seem to be an end. You need to follow that structure. But every great story does very specific things within the beginning, the middle, and end that builds the pressure, that builds the buy-in from the audience and leads them to victory and celebration at the end, right? And so as we move into the next step of what we do in these parts of the story and that build the connection is we have to, introduce the key characters of the story. Right. Each of us have stories and experiences that we've gone through. I've mentioned some of mine in the story that I mentioned about going to the movies with my grandma. She's another character, right? As I talk about the story of how I got fired as a financial advisor, right? I had former partners and I had other people in my firm. I have my wife and my kids that were affected by these things. And as I share the story, and I introduced those other characters that took part in the story, it just shows that there are more points of view and more connection opportunities with the audience, because I'm a husband, I'm a father, I'm a best-selling author, storytelling marketer, I work with heart-centered ecomm sellers, or, I can say all these things, but not everyone who hears my message fits into all of those categories. So as I introduce a Tracy Wilson, and I met Tracy at this amazing event, and she's from Australia, and she's amazing and like just an incredible human being and intelligent, all these things, right? There are people that will resonate with Tracy, right? There are reasons why people like the Marvel comic movies, with Iron Man and Captain America and Thor, everyone has their favorite character because they see parts of themselves in those characters. So that's why we introduce all the key characters in the story. Now, that doesn't mean at the very beginning of this story, say, okay, this story has me and, Tracy and my friend and that kind of stuff. You introduce them as they come into the story, where they fit in. So that's the next step in that framework. So again, just to review, begin with the end in mind, introduce the conflict early. Every story has a beginning, middle, and end. And then we introduce the key characters early. As we introduce the key characters, the next step is name an enemy, right? Every single one of us in our stories, the conflict that came in, whether it's big or small, there was someone or something that brought the conflict to us, right? The example of Star Wars, the conflict was the Civil War, but Luke Skywalker wasn't involved in it. He was just a farm boy living on a planet, right? But because of the Empire and all these other things, the conflict landed like right in his backyard and he was pulled into the story, right? So name an enemy. The one thing I'll put when it comes to naming an enemy is, I mentioned in my losing my job as a financial advisor that I had former partners. I don't name them specifically or the firm that they work at or things like that. I just refer to them as a former partner. So if there's a situation that might make things awkward or you don't want to be like slanderous or things like that, you can keep it general, but always name an enemy, because it's true that person or thing or whatever brought the conflict to you. But again, it gives the audience something to root against. And that builds in buy-in and connection with you because they want you to win because you're the one telling the story. So, name an enemy. Then we go into the next step, which is all about conflict again, right? You have to raise the stakes. The conflict in your story, whatever it started you on your journey, there was something that started you going. You may have done some research. You may have discovered some things. You may have gone down that rabbit hole and had your mind blown with how bad the problem really was. It was way worse than you thought it was to begin with. Or, as you started building your business, it might have got to a make or break point in where you had to get this sale or close this deal in order to keep your doors open or the lights on and those kinds of things. The conflict always just evolves in the story. You think of Back to the Future. For those of you, that's one of my other favorite movies. It starts off with Marty McFly unwittingly going back to the 1950s, and he has to get his way back. But the time machine runs out of fuel, so he doesn't know how to get back. He has to, find Doc Brown in the past and try to convince him of what's going on. He runs into his parents, and then he sees all the drama that could happen with that interference and everything. So you just kind of see all of this happening. It's not just as simple as like, oh, I went back in time and I just got to get back. It got to the point where if he didn't hit this thing at this exact time when lightning struck this tower, he was going to be stuck there forever, right? And so you think of that when it comes to the conflict. It just gets more and more complex as the story goes on. Again, what that does to the audience psychologically, emotionally, is it gets them bought in. They're rooting for you. They're feeling that tension. They're feeling that excitement. They're feeling the worry and the stress that you're feeling as you're telling it and you're going through that experience yourself. So the next step in the framework is be detailed. Sights, smells, emotions, other individuals who are a part of it. Because again, when I talked earlier about the story with my grandma going to the movie theater, how I remember how my shoes stuck to the floor, the smell of popcorn. If you hadn't ever gone to a movie theater, which pretty much everyone in the world has at some point, we haven't been able to for the last while, really, but like we used to. But so you've experienced some of those things, or people know the smell of movie popcorn or things like that. So there are ways to connect and draw people deeper into the story. And when you can engage the senses and share those things and those details, the people listening to it, not only does it take the auditory parts of their brain and engage them by hearing the words, but it activates those other areas in the brain that associate memories and those smells and sights and things to experiences that they've had. And we can build that personal connection between what you're sharing with them and what they've experienced. That's where the relationship happens and people fall in love, or they become those rabid, avid fans for life and those kinds of things. The devil is in the details, and it is with your story. And so that's 7 points. And I have 2 more that are super important. And it's simply, the next one is being genuine. Over the last year, since everyone's been shut in or on quarantines and unable to go and talk to people in person like we used to openly and freely, there's a lot of noise. There's a lot of BS out there, and it's very, it's becoming very easy to spot and to see through. So being genuine, I take as two different things. One, you don't want to make up or fudge or fake any parts of your story, right? Mm-hmm. You don't want those things to come out that you were lying or things like that, because the truth is ultimately going to come out. And whatever goodwill or trust that you built with those false stories will be destroyed and almost irreparable, or it will cost you lots of time and money to rebuild. So don't fake your story, but you also don't have to cry or get emotional or, those kinds of things in your storytelling either, because again, they don't translate well when they're fake, unless you're, Tom Cruise or Tom Hanks, or, a professionally trained actor who spends years and years and years perfecting how to be able to do that. It can be seen as manipulative, but also, disingenuine, and it just feels off. So don't worry about those. Just share true stories, share your true self, and give yourself grace when doing it, and good things will always happen. And then the last step, I know I'm going through a whole lot here, so we'll have a lot to unwrap here in a minute, Tracy, but the last step is do it now and don't wait, right? There are people that are searching for your voice right now. There are people that are in pain that are searching for your solution that you can help, that you know all of your life's experiences, the sleepless nights, the passion, the joy, the tears, all those things that you've experienced can help somebody right now. You don't have to have an audience of 5 million people or 5,000 people. You just need to put it out there and you'll start to build that audience. But that audience, the people that are searching for it, they'll hear your voice and it's going to change their life in a major way. And that doesn't start until you actually start putting it out there and sharing now, instead of waiting for some, benchmark on how many subscribers I'll get and then I'll do this, or, that kind of thing. Put that out of your mind. That's truly you being selfish and giving into your fear of putting yourself out there. So that's the last one, is do it now. Don't wait. That was a lot that I just dropped there, but there you go. That's my framework that I walk everybody through, and how I build all of the stories that I work on for myself, as well as the clients that I work with.
I want to get up and say Yahoo, Nic, because you're echoing the same stuff. When you join the Unlock show, it's that is what this is about. Is like, someone's saying bam, and I'm going to say bam. Totally, what Nic is talking about. The time is now. Like he finished with, don't wait. The time is now, and it doesn't matter if you're fumbling along. You're thinking, I don't have an audience. You start changing lives one by one. You start with one life, then two, and then two becomes four, and so on and so forth. And I can't echo what Nic is saying enough about how much every single one of you are listening have got a story, have got a message to be shared. You just, like, now that he's given you a framework, there's not a lot of excuses that you have, and now is the time to really to start sharing it, because like I said, one by one you can start changing lives. Something that's really interesting, that like you talked, and it was step number, let me have a look, like in this number 7, be detailed, but also kind of really using your senses, because I think also a lot of people kind of struggle with how much detail should I give, and what I'm hearing from you is you're wanting to really enable your audience to be transported into the story, just as if you were watching a movie. You are feeling all of those emotions of Marty McFly, like panicking. Oh my God, I've got to get there at that particular time, at that moment. Otherwise, I'm never going to get back to my, to the life that I long to get back to. Like, you're wanting to do that. And there's a really cool exercise, and I want to do it kind of now, because this will demonstrate to everybody how you can very easily transport somebody into your story by using what Nic is talking about, by describing particular things and allowing them to transport themselves into the story with you. So I want you to imagine this, and we're going to start using some of your guys' senses today. I want you to imagine that right now you have got a big, juicy lemon in your hand right now. It is like beautiful and yellow. You can feel it. You can, like, you're squeezing it and you can feel that, oh my God, this friggin' lemon has got a lot of juice in it. And I'm going to make something with it today, right? So you've got this lemon in front of you. It's in your hand. You're going to pop that lemon down, and you're going to imagine that you're popping that lemon down on your cutting board right now. What I want you to do is I want you to slice that lemon in half. And as you're slicing that lemon in half, you can see the juice running out of that lemon. It's like running out, and it's going all over your cutting board right now. You can see that. Now what I want you to do is, you're imagining you're going to pick up that lemon, and you are going to look at that lemon, and you are going to take one big bite out of that lemon. It's like, bring it up to your mouth. You go, bite that, and the juice is starting to run down the sides of your mouth. It is like completely, totally all over the inside of your mouth. Your taste buds are tasting it. Now, I want you to think about right now, if you did that exercise with me, the exercise of me taking you on the journey of that lemon in your hand, cutting that lemon and actually taking a great big bite of that really sour lemon, how that felt. Did you feel all of your taste buds actually feeling that? Did you feel the tingling as if you were biting a real lemon? That's exactly what Nic is talking about when he's talking about the detail of the color of the lemon, what it feels like, what you're doing with it, putting it down on the bench, you're cutting it in half, you're putting it up to your mouth, you're biting it, and someone's saying, yes, my mouth is watering. And that is exactly what he is talking about. That just demonstrates how powerful it is when you use the framework that Nic is talking about to tell a story. You transport the person there so that they can actually feel the emotions and get all of their senses going. That's just a very simple demonstration. So thank you for that, Nic. I love all of that storytelling framework, and I want to make sure that I know you've got a free giveaway that you'd like to share with everybody today. So I'm going to bring it up onto the screen. If you want a copy of, and is it this is a copy of the free framework, Nic?
Yeah, it's a PDF of the 9 steps that we went through. It goes into more detail and talks about them. But yeah, it's an absolutely free download that you can get friendlygiantfilms.com and start to really see how to build your stories with these steps.
I love this. And is this something like, so guys, you can see it on the screen right now. So www.friendlygiantfilms.com, and Nic has got the 9-step framework on there of how to build out the storytelling framework. So go get yourself a copy of that so that you can start thinking through and start working through the stories that you have. Because this conversation is kind of coined as, there are gems inside of your story that are going to lead you to profit. And if you do not tell your story, you are leaving a lot of money on the table. And it's just finding those specific things, the conflicts within your life, that you can now use Nic's framework to start telling your story in a very authentic and purposeful way. So Nic, today we're almost out of time, but there's so many good things inside of what you're talking about. Is there anything else that you would like to leave our viewers with today? Or guys, if you would like to ask Nic any questions, now is your opportunity. Just write them in the comments. We will get them here, and we'll make sure that I actually ask Nic the questions on your behalf.
Yeah. So one thing that I will say, when it comes to storytelling, like you've heard Tracy and I talking about it for the last 40 or 50 minutes or so. You've heard, your marketing coaches or the gurus out there talk about how important it is. The stories that you tell and you work on and you intentionally build them now, whether you've been in business for 10 years or 10 days, wherever you are on the spectrum, the stories that you can identify about why you started the business that you're doing, how you discovered the process or the solution or the product that you offer, and the story of the results that you've seen it get for yourself and for others. Those 3 stories you will tell thousands of times over the next 10, 15, 20 years, however long you want to be in your career. You think of guys like Tony Robbins or Dean Graziosi and Gary Vee. You hear the same stories from them. You go to their events, you hear some of the same stories almost every single time. But they still connect with you. They still resonate. And there's a reason, because they have been intentional. They have built them. They get results for the audience. So make it a priority. And if you're stuck, use that framework. Talk to Tracy, talk to me. We're happy to help you and guide you on building those for yourself, because those stories, especially those core 3 stories, and if you have more than one product, you have 2 more stories about how you discovered it and what results that product gets for yourself or for people, right? You will tell those thousands of times. They will make you the majority of your income over the next 10, 20, 30 years, because they connect, they clearly, say what it is you do, what you're all about. You could come up with a different product every 6 months and try and sell that, and you'll make some money. But if you focus on these core stories and tell them over and over and over, that will make you the majority of your income over the next couple decades as you build your business. So just keep that in mind, how important it is to really get the stories done. Yes, you have to have a good offer. Yes, you need to have a product that works, right? But if you can't tell the story and communicate how it helps people and why it's important, it's not going to sell. It could be the most amazing thing in the world, but if you don't have the story dialed in or figured out, or even like a general idea of how it helps people, you're going to struggle with it. So that's the thing, is like, make that your focus and prioritize it in the things that you're doing, because it will make you the lion's share of your wealth for years to come.
You betcha. Well, I want to say thank you so much for being on the show today, Nic. I'm so glad that I persevered and got you here, because so many, like massive nugget that you have shared today. And I also I echo this stuff so much because I know that a lot of people are afraid to tell this story. And so a lot of what we do, particularly here inside of Success Secrets for Business, Family and Life, people are seeing that we've got more and more shows coming onto our network and into our broadcasting network. And that's because now is the time to start sharing your story. And all you need is some stories. You need a platform to do it on, which we call the Anchor platform, and what I also call the ACE method. So for those of you that have been listening to me for a while, you'll know what I'm talking about when I say the ACE method. And if you don't, then actually tomorrow night at 7 p.m. Brisbane time, I've actually got a free web class that I'm going to be running. So I'll be going into some of the detail about what Nic's actually talking about today, but I'll be covering off the ACE method. And it is the one thing that has made such a massive difference to me, my business, and all of the clients, and including Vicky Helm, that we've been working with over the last year or two. So I want to make sure that I share and I uncover all of that. But it's really interesting because a lot of the stuff that Nic's actually talked about today is like, yes, that's all the stuff that that I'll actually be uncovering a lot more of that on the webinar tomorrow night. But I want to say thank you so much for Nic for being here, because he is truly an amazing guy. He calls himself the Friendly Giant. He is a big man, but with a huge heart to match. And he really does know his stuff when it comes to storytelling. So I wanted to make sure that you guys had the opportunity to hear from Nic. I wanted to give him an opportunity to speak to this audience, because this audience is one that has great stories inside of them that really can impact the world. And like Nic said, guys, today is the day that you need to start. And if you're struggling on how to do that, well, I'd encourage you to come to my webinar tomorrow night, and I will share more of how you can uncover your story, how you can get your message out there so that you are seen and heard, and you can continue to build your audience. Like Nic said, it was the number one thing that he did at the beginning of building his business, was build his audience. I'm going to talk you through how to do that. So thank you so much, everybody, for joining us today on another episode of Unlocked. I'm Tracy Wilson. I've been joined today by the amazing Nic Fitzgerald from Friendly Giant Films. If you want more about Nic, you can go and find him there. You can also track him down on social media, Nic Fitzgerald with an N-I-C, Fitzgerald. You can find him, and I'm sure that Nic will be happy to have further conversations with you should you so wish to. But for now, I'm going to say thank you so much for watching. Any questions you have, join the Success Secrets for Business, Family and Life group, and we will make sure that we answer those questions for you. And I'll be back again this Friday with another episode of Unlocked. So thank you so much, and I'll see you then. Have an awesome day, everybody. Bye for now.